After more than 30 years of practicing medicine, of looking patients in the eye and guiding them through some of the most challenging health journeys of their lives, I've learned a few things. One of the most important is that sometimes the simplest advice isn't the best advice. Today, I'm going to reveal 3 truths about frozen foods that you will almost never hear from a doctor. And by the end of our time together, you'll understand exactly why we often stay silent on this topic, and more importantly, how you can take back control of your own nutrition right in the frozen food aisle. This isn't about some fad diet or a magic pill. This is about practical, evidence-based knowledge that has been overshadowed by well-meaning, but often outdated, conventional wisdom. I'm not here to criticize my profession. In many ways, I am the profession. I've lived it, I've taught it, and I believe in its power to heal. But I am also a realist. I know what happens inside the 4 walls of an exam room. The clock is always ticking, with appointments often condensed into just 15 minutes. There simply isn't enough time to delve into the nuanced realities of modern nutrition. We're forced to give you the headlines, the shorthand version: eat more fresh vegetables, avoid processed foods. It's good advice on the surface, but it's incomplete. And in that gap between the simple advice and the complex reality, a lot of myths can take root. Today, we're pulling up those myths, one by one. The first and biggest myth, the one I hear repeated most often, is this: all frozen foods are nutritionally inferior to fresh foods. We've all been taught that fresh is best. It's a catchy phrase, and it feels intuitively right. We picture a farmer pulling a vibrant carrot from the earth and placing it directly into our hands. But that's a fantasy for most of us. The reality of fresh produce is often a very long journey. Let me tell you about a patient of mine, Margaret. She was in her late 70s, sharp as a tack, and determined to improve her diet. She spent a great deal of her fixed income on beautiful-looking fresh produce from the big chain grocery store. But when we ran her blood work, her vitamin levels weren't improving as much as we'd hoped. She was frustrated, and frankly, so was I. The culprit wasn't her effort, it was the supply chain. That fresh broccoli she was buying had likely been picked a week or more ago, sometimes even longer. It was harvested, shipped hundreds of miles in a truck, sat in a distribution center, and then spent several more days on the grocery store shelf before she even bought it. During that entire time, light, heat, and oxygen were degrading its delicate nutrients, especially water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C and B vitamins. Now, let's contrast that with its frozen counterpart. The vegetables destined for the freezer aisle are typically picked at their absolute peak of ripeness, when their nutrient profile is at its highest. Within hours, they are flash frozen. This process rapidly freezes the produce, locking those vitamins and minerals in place. So, that bag of frozen broccoli, it might very well have more vitamin C than the fresh head sitting next to it. That's been on a cross-country tour for the last 10 days. Have you ever wondered why your fresh spinach wilts so quickly? Or why those strawberries sometimes go soft just a day after you buy them? It's because their biological clock is still ticking. Flash freezing essentially stops that clock right at the moment of peak nutritional value. It's a marvel of food preservation that we often dismiss without a second thought. So, is a carrot pulled from your own garden 30 seconds ago better? Of course, but for the 99% of us who don't live on a farm, frozen is often, and I mean often, nutritionally superior to the fresh options available at the supermarket. Now for the second lie, and it's a big one that keeps many people from taking advantage of the convenience of frozen foods. It's the belief that all frozen meals are sodium bombs, guaranteed to send your blood pressure soaring. Let's be honest, this reputation wasn't entirely unearned. For decades, the quintessential TV dinner was a salt-laden, preservative-packed meal that did our health no favors. Many of us carry that memory, and it shapes our choices today. But the food industry has undergone a quiet revolution. As consumers have become more health-conscious, manufacturers have had to adapt. The frozen food aisle of today is not the same one from your youth. There's now a vast and growing selection of meals specifically designed to be low in sodium, with seniors being a key demographic. You're not alone if you felt overwhelmed trying to find them. The key is learning the language of the nutrition label. Here's the single most important number to look for: 600 milligrams of sodium per serving. Why 600? The American Heart Association recommends that adults consume no more than 300 milligrams of sodium per day, with an ideal limit of 1,500 milligrams for most adults, especially those with high blood pressure. If you aim for meals under 600 milligrams, it leaves you enough room for your other meals and snacks without going over that critical daily limit. Sodium acts like a magnet for water in your body. When you consume too much, it pulls extra water into your bloodstream, increasing the volume of blood and therefore the pressure on your blood vessel walls. For seniors whose blood vessels may already be less flexible, this is a direct path to hypertension, which is a major risk factor for stroke and heart attack. Let me tell you about John, a patient of mine in his early 80s who lived alone. He was a proud man, but cooking a full meal every night had become a monumental task. He was relying more and more on restaurant takeout and canned soups, and his blood pressure was creeping up dangerously. He told me, "Doc, I feel trapped. I know the takeout is bad for me, but I'm too tired to cook. And those frozen meals are just salt boxes, right?" We sat down together during his next appointment, and I showed him how to scan labels for that magic number, 600 milligrams. The next time I saw him, he was beaming. He'd discovered a brand of frozen salmon with rice and vegetables that clocked in at just 450 milligrams of sodium. He was eating better. He felt more in control, and guess what? His blood pressure readings were the best they'd been in years. The irony is that a carefully chosen frozen meal can be far healthier than many restaurant options that we perceive as healthy. That bowl of chicken noodle soup from your favorite cafe, it can easily top 1,000 milligrams of sodium. A seemingly innocent salad with grilled chicken, once you add the dressing, you could be looking at over 1,100 milligrams. Have you ever considered that? The information is right there, but you have to know what to look for. This brings us to our third and final myth, one that concerns a food that is critically important for brain and heart health: fish. The myth is that frozen fish is less safe and less healthy than the fresh fish you see laid out on ice at the seafood counter. This is perhaps the greatest misunderstanding of them all. I'm going to tell you an industry secret that might surprise you. A vast majority of the fresh fish sold in grocery stores was, in fact, previously frozen and then thawed for display. It's a common practice, but here's why buying it directly from the freezer case is often the smarter, safer choice. Think about the journey of a fish. A fishing vessel might be out at sea for days, even weeks, to preserve the catch and maintain its quality. The fish are often processed and flash frozen right on the boat, just hours after being pulled from the ocean. This process is often called frozen at sea, or FAS. This rapid, deep freeze does two incredibly important things. First, and most critically from a safety standpoint, it kills parasites. It's an unpleasant thought, but parasites like worms are a natural occurrence in wild fish. Freezing the fish to a sufficiently low temperature for a specific period of time effectively eliminates this risk. The fish you buy thawed at the counter has likely undergone this process, but buying it still frozen gives you that extra layer of certainty. Second, that immediate freeze locks in the fish's delicate nutrients, particularly its precious omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA. These are the powerhouse compounds that help reduce inflammation, support cognitive function, and protect your cardiovascular system. They are also fragile. The longer a fish sits unfrozen, the more these healthy fats can begin to degrade. So, the frozen fillet in the bag may actually have a higher omega-3 content than its thawed counterpart that has been sitting in the display case for a day or two. And that brings me to the simplest test of all for freshness: your nose. A truly fresh fish should smell of the clean sea, maybe a little briny, but it should not have a strong fishy odor. That odor is a sign that the fish has begun to decompose. By choosing frozen fish, you bypass that uncertainty entirely. You are in control. You thaw it yourself right before you cook it, ensuring it is as fresh and safe as possible. For seniors, for whom foodborne illness can be particularly dangerous, this is not a small detail. It's a significant advantage that makes frozen fish one of the safest and healthiest protein sources available. So if these myths are so easily debunked, it leads to the obvious question: why aren't more doctors talking about this? Why do we so often fall back on the simple, and as we've seen, sometimes misleading advice to just eat fresh? The answer isn't a single thing, but rather a combination of factors rooted in the realities of our modern healthcare system. The first and most significant reason is time. The 15-minute primary care appointment has become the standard in medicine, and frankly, it is the enemy of nuance. In that short window, I need to listen to your concerns, review your chart and recent labs, conduct a physical exam, consider potential diagnoses, decide on a treatment plan, and send prescriptions to your pharmacy. And that's before you, the patient, have had a chance to ask your own questions. It's an immense amount of pressure. In that environment, communication has to be incredibly efficient. It's far quicker and simpler for me to say, try to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, than it is to have a 10-minute conversation about the nutrient degradation in the produce supply chain, the science of flash freezing, and how to properly read a nutrition label. Think of it this way: in that appointment, my job often becomes about giving you a map, a quick guide with simple directions, like avoid this road or turn here. That map is helpful, and it will get you generally where you need to go. But what I wish I had the time for is to sit down and teach you how to use a compass, to give you the fundamental skills to navigate any terrain on your own, to understand the principles so you can make informed decisions in any grocery store. Faced with any choice, giving you the simple map takes 30 seconds. Teaching you to use the compass takes time that the system often doesn't allow for. The second reason, and this is one that might be difficult to hear, is a gap in our training. I can tell you that in my 4 years of medical school and in the years of residency that followed, I received an exhaustive education in pharmacology, pathophysiology, anatomy, and diagnostics. I can explain the intricate cascade of a dozen different biological processes in the body, but the amount of dedicated, required training we received in nutrition, for most doctors, it's less than 20 hours across all of medical school. Let that sink in. We are trained to be experts in disease. We are trained to identify what has gone wrong in the body and to fix it, primarily with medication and procedures. The field of nutrition, on the other hand, is its own incredibly complex and deep science. A registered dietitian spends years studying this very topic, making them the true experts in this domain. Most doctors simply don't have that specialized training. Therefore, we tend to stick to the broad, universally accepted principles we learned early on, principles like fresh is best. It's not from a lack of caring. It's a reflection of where our medical education places its focus, on treatment, often more than on the nuances of prevention through diet. It's much easier to stay in our lane of expertise than to venture into a field where our knowledge is, admittedly, more foundational than expert level. So when we give simple advice, it's often a reflection of the outer limits of our own formal nutritional training. Finally, the third reason we often stay silent is more subtle. It comes down to professional caution and liability. Recommending a general dietary principle like eat more whole foods is professionally and legally very safe. No one can argue with that advice. But what happens if I start getting specific? What if I were to recommend brand X's low-sodium frozen lasagna? First, it can be seen as an endorsement, which raises ethical questions about conflicts of interest. Doctors must remain impartial and avoid promoting specific commercial products. But more than that, what if brand X decides to change its recipe next month and the sodium content doubles? I have no way of knowing that, yet I have given you, my patient, specific advice that is now incorrect and potentially harmful. What if you have a rare food allergy to an additive in that specific product? By recommending a general principle, the responsibility for the specific choice remains with the patient. By recommending a specific product, the doctor assumes a small but very real piece of liability. It is professionally safer and simpler to provide the broad strokes and encourage you to make good choices within those guidelines. So when you put it all together, the crushing lack of time, the gaps in our formal training, and the professional caution required in our field, you can begin to see why these conversations rarely happen in the exam room. It's not a conspiracy. It's the practical, unfortunate reality of a system stretched to its limits. But that reality doesn't have to limit your health. Now, let's talk about how you can take this knowledge and turn it into action. Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes true power when you apply it. So let's move from the why to the how. I want to give you a clear, 4-step action plan that you can start using on your very next trip to the grocery store. This is how you take back control. First, you need to become a label detective. The Nutrition Facts Panel is not just a box of numbers. It is the single most honest piece of information in the entire supermarket. Your first mission is to look for sodium. Scan down that column and find the number next to sodium. Is it under 600 milligrams? If yes, the meal passes the first test. If it's higher, put it back, no matter how healthy it looks on the box. Second, look at the ingredient list. Here's a simple rule: the shorter, the better. If the list is a paragraph long and filled with chemical names you can't pronounce, it's more of a science experiment than a meal. Look for whole food ingredients at the top of the list, like broccoli, chicken, or brown rice. Step 2 is to know your best buys. Not all frozen foods are created equal. For vegetables, your nutritional powerhouses are things like spinach, broccoli, peas, and mixed berries. They freeze beautifully and retain a massive amount of their vitamins and antioxidants. The key is to buy them plain, no added cheese sauces, no butter, no sugary glazes. You want to be the one in control of what you add. For fish, my top recommendations are wild-caught salmon, cod, and tilapia. They are rich in omega-3 south and are excellent, clean sources of protein. For other proteins, look for bags of simple, pre-cooked grilled chicken strips or unseasoned lean ground turkey. These are incredible time savers for building a quick, healthy meal. Step 3 is to master the conversation with your doctor. You don't have to be confrontational. You can be collaborative. Next time you're in the office, try saying this: "Doctor, I'm working on my nutrition, but find cooking a big meal every single night is getting difficult. I've found some frozen meals that have less than 600 milligrams of sodium. From a heart health perspective, what are your thoughts on me using those on days when I'm tired?" This approach shows that you are informed, proactive, and it invites them to be a partner in your health strategy. If you want to go deeper, you can say, "I know our time is limited, but nutrition is a huge priority for me. Could you please provide me with a referral to a registered dietitian?" This is one of the most powerful things you can do for your long-term health. Finally, step 4 is to build a flexibility meal plan. The all-or-nothing approach to dieting is what causes people to fail. Life happens. Energy levels fluctuate. A smart plan incorporates convenience. Maybe on Sunday, you cook a fresh meal. You enjoy the leftovers on Monday. On Tuesday, when you're feeling tired, that's your designated frozen meal night. You can have a healthy, doctor-approved meal on the table in less than 15 minutes with zero stress. It's not about being perfect, it's about being prepared. You don't have to wait for your doctor to bring up these topics. You are now equipped with the insider information to make smart, healthy, and convenient choices in the frozen food aisle. You have the knowledge to read the labels, the list of best buys, and the script to talk with your physician. You are in the driver's seat. Which of the 3 myths we discussed today surprised you the most? Was it that fresh isn't always best, the truth about sodium in restaurant meals, or the secret about fresh fish? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading your responses. If you found this information valuable, please subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell. I release a new video every single week aimed at giving you the medical truths that your doctor might simply not have the time to share, and you won't want to miss what's coming next week. We're going to tackle the sleep advice doctors often get wrong and how it's costing seniors years of quality rest. Until then, be well and take charge of your health. You've certainly earned it.